Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very warm greeting to everyone. I would like to welcome all of you to the 6th World Conference of Islamic Thoughts and Civilization of the year 2020. We are deeply grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for granting us the chance to gather virtually today to witness the opening of the 6th World Conference of Islamic Thoughts and Civilization of the year 2020. Despite the postponement of the conference for almost 1 year and a half, due to the pandemic COVID-19 that has struck the world today, we are given the opportunity to share and engage in thought-provoking discussions as we generate even more ideas on the current research scenes virtually. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, to tell us more about the conference, we would like to invite our chairperson, Professor Tan Sri Datuk Dr. Nordin bin Kardi, to deliver his welcoming remarks. Please welcome.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Greetings from the 6th World Conference on Islamic Thought WCIT Committee and University Sultan Azlan Shah. The past year had been life-changing on a global scale. The pandemic COVID-19 has created a chain reaction that affects the dynamics of everything that is life. Lifestyle, economy, healthcare, and education, none are spared. And that is just naming a few from the long list. The year 2020 had seen the world dealing with a crisis that was beyond our control, and the only solution is nothing but to adopt and adapt to the new normal. The 6th WCIT was also directly affected with the restriction and limitations that came with the pandemic. Traditionally held as a physical event where brilliant minds convene and exchange ideas, the inevitable has seen to its change. Even with the challenge, the WCIT committee has seen it as a turning point in a new era event management. The future is indeed here. As the conference chair for the 6th World Conference on Islamic Thought and Civilization WCIT, it is with the greatest pleasure for me to welcome all paper presenters and participants joining our virtual paper presentation session today. We are committed to bring WCIT to you, starting with the paper presentation as a prelude to the much anticipated 6th World Conference on Islamic Thoughts and Civilization. I would like to extend my sincerest thanks to all presenters for their commitments and contribution today towards the success of this webinar event. I believe that everyone who is joining the virtual presentation today will benefit from the session, where insights from experts are shared and deliberated. Thank you again for being part of the event today. The committee and I look forward to having all of you at the 6th WCIT Grand Launching in the near future. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you to our Honorable Chairperson, Professor Tan Sri Datuk Dr. Nordin bin Kardi for the welcoming remarks just now. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now with great pleasure we would like to invite our Director of WCIT 2020, Professor Datuk Dr. Wan Sabri Wan Yusof, to deliver his opening speech. Please welcome.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. And a greeting from WCIT 2020 committee. It is with utmost pleasure for me, as the conference director for the 6th World Conference on Islamic Thought and Civilization, WCIT 2020, to welcome all paper presenters and participants today joining our virtual paper presentation sessions. The year 2020 had been unprecedented, where the world globally has been inundated by the COVID-19 pandemic and been put to a halt. The 6th World Conference on Islamic Thought and Civilization itself was affected. Initially scheduled for March the 9th last year, the unforeseen circumstances had seen for much of the awaited event was postponed for safety measures. Despite the unexpected turn of events, the WCIT 2020 committee has always been committed on working around the impediments in ensuring the conference to be realized sooner or later. It is with great delight for me to welcome all of you to the preludes of our 6th World Conference on Islamic Thought and Civilization, kick-started by the paper presentation session today. I'd like to thank all paper presenters for their contribution toward the realization of this virtual event. The WCIT franchise has always prided itself as a platform of indigenous intellectual discourse and seedbed of ideas. I hope that both presenters and participants alike would benefit from the academic discourse. Thank you again for all your time today. I look forward to welcome all of you to the grand launchings of WCIT 2020 in the near future, inshallah. Have a fruitful presentation. Wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.
Thank you to our distinguished director of WCIT 2020, Professor Datuk Dr. Wan Sabriwan Yusof, for the opening speech just now. With that being delivered, it marks the end of the opening ceremony for the 6th World Conference of Islamic Thoughts and Civilization of the year 2020. Next, we shall continue to the first parallel session, which is the English papers presentation, followed by Malay papers presentation, and lastly, Arabic papers presentation. On behalf of the WCIT 2020 team, we would like to express our gratitude to the top committees, sponsors and presenters, listeners, and lastly to the organizing committees in ensuring this conference a success. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the WCIT 2020. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very warm greeting to everyone. I would like to welcome all of you to the English paper session for the 6th WCIT 2020. We are honored to welcome all the presenters to this conference who are here to share their inputs and thoughts towards the betterment of today's ummah. For today's English paper session, we will be listening 10 presentations of English papers which are submitted from scholars and researchers across the country. All of these papers have gone through a complete review process before proceeding to be presented at this conference. Therefore, we would like to thank you for the cooperation and commitment from the presenters to help in making this conference a success. Ladies and gentlemen, without wasting any more time, let us please welcome our first presenter, Professor Dr. Erlin K. Ghani from University Technology Mara, who will be presenting on a paper titled The Influence of Behaviorism, Enforcement and Law Clarity on Tax Compliance Among E-Commerce Muslim Taxpayers. Please welcome.
Assalamualaikum and a very good day to all of you. My name is Alani K. Ghani. I am from University Technology Mara, and today I'm going to present a paper entitled The Influence of Behaviorism, Enforcement and Law Clarity on Tax Compliance Among E-Commerce Muslim Taxpayers. Now, this paper is co-authored by also by Hanis Salwa Abdul Razak and Dr. Kamaruzaman Muhammad. So today, so I will start now. Right. Now, the advancement of technology makes it easier for people to communicate, share information, and create an effective learning environment in many ways. And one of the advantages of technology evolution is the blooming of e-commerce. And e-commerce has been growing rapidly for the past 20 years since its first transaction in 1995. And this culture has transcended around society in Malaysia since the year 2016. Now, according to Surendran, e-commerce contributed 211 billion to the country's gross domestic product in 2016, and it will continue to show tremendous growth rate from 10.8% in 2016 to 20.8% in 2020. Similarly, the Department of Statistics Malaysia has also reported in 2016 that the digital economy had contributed 6.1% out of the 18.2% of the GDP growth in 2016. Now, the objective of this study is to examine the effect of behaviorism, enforcement, and law clarity on tax compliance among the e-commerce Muslim taxpayers. Right? So the significance of this study is that it contributes to the tax authorities of Malaysia in executing an effective control mechanism and establishing good policies and regulations relating to tax compliance to ensure that no more taxpayers will enjoy tax avoidance or evasion in the future. So for this study, we have developed three hypotheses. The first hypothesis is there is a positive relationship between behaviorism and tax compliance among e-commerce Muslim taxpayers. H2, there is a positive relationship between enforcement and tax compliance among the e-commerce Muslim taxpayers. And the third hypothesis is that there is a positive relationship between law clarity and tax compliance among the e-commerce Muslim taxpayers. Now, when reviewing the literature, we find that there are studies that have conducted similar issues, similar study. The first one is by Sanchez and Juan. In 1995, they say that tax compliance can be affected by many issues, right? So among the issues that have been suggested, according to Jackson and Milliron, in 1986, it says that economic, sociological, psychological, and political factors have a correlation with tax compliance. Okay, and then in 1992, Fisher, Wartick, and Mark have also identified that a model of taxpayer compliance was proposed by them with 4 dimensions to show the relationship between each dimension and tax compliance. Okay, and then Ho and Wong in 2008 produced the first dimension in the model that focuses on demography, while the second dimension emphasizes on the non-compliance opportunity, such as education, income level, and occupation. Now, the third dimension captures the attitude and perception of taxpayers, and the last dimension states the tax system or structure of a country. For example, complexity of the system, interaction with tax authorities, sanctions, and detection. This model was verified by Chan, Trotman, and O'Brien, and consistent with the basic values of the Islamic principles. And then subsequently in 2017, Tuan Basra, Muhammad Ali, and Ghani noted that the first factor is on behaviorism. Okay, so behaviorism refers to the attitude towards a behavior, reveals the degree of positive or negative perception of such behavior. Okay, and then in 2001, Singh and Bupalan noted that the IRBM, that is the Inland Revenue, uses economic deterrence strategies, which are penalties and enforcement, including legal and criminal methods, to address the intention of non-compliance among taxpayers when using the self-assessment system, which this has subsequently led to the enforcement of the taxpayers. Okay, and then Sapi is in 2013 and 2014 shows that there is a relationship between perceived tax complexities and tax compliance, and it shows that tax complexity is an important determinant of taxpayer compliance. Furthermore, their research also shows weak tax policy structures and less transparent tax system in emerging economies. Now, how this study was conducted? First, the target respondents is the population of e-commerce Muslim taxpayers who are involved in the clothing and fashion business activities in Malaysia. And then the respondents were divided into 2 groups. The first group is the audited respondents, and then the second group is the respondents who have not been audited by the IRBM. Okay. Now they were divided to capture the behavior of e-commerce taxpayers regarding compliance with tax rules and their involvement with the regulation of the tax system. So this study used a questionnaire survey as the research instrument. There are 5 parts. All the parts use a 5-point scale from 1 for strongly disagree to 5 for strongly agree. Okay, so the 5 parts, first part is related to demographic information. The second part is on respondents' perception of tax compliance. The third part is respondents' perception of behaviorism. The fourth part is respondents' perception of enforcement. The final part is related to respondents' perception of law clarity by focusing on the awareness and tax complexity of e-commerce taxpayers to the tax law. Okay, so the result of our study is that if we can see here, this one is the descriptive statistic and normality test for tax compliance. We can see that the average mean score of 3.59 for the dependent variable, okay, that is the tax compliance, and the lowest mean score is 3.47, which is the time taken to pay tax, and the highest mean score for tax compliance is the disclosure of information with a score of 3.68. Okay. And when we conducted a descriptive statistic and normality test for behaviorism, the lowest mean score is attributed to Mr. A reporting his sale with a score of 3.35, and the highest mean score of 3.85 is attributed to moral obligation. Then next is the descriptive statistic and normality test for enforcement. The lowest mean score concerns the favorable treatment with a score of 3.58, and the highest mean score of 3.8 relates to the item may be audited. Okay. Next is the result of the descriptive statistics and normality test for law clarity. We find that the lowest mean score of the data is 3.22, and then the highest mean score is 3.90, which is good record keeping to reduce tax audit. The skewness has a score of negative 1.077, and the skewness score, on the other hand, shows a value of 1.414. Now, this is the regression result of the for behaviorism. Okay, so here it shows that the behaviorism variable has a significant influence on tax compliance, since the value is 0.00, which is less than 0.01. This indicates that there is a positive relationship between behaviorism and tax compliance. The enforcement is significant, which is below 0.01. So this indicates that there is a positive relationship between enforcement and tax compliance among the e-commerce Muslim taxpayers. The result also shows a positive relationship between law clarity and tax compliance among the e-commerce Muslim taxpayers. And the result shows that the variable is significant at 95% confidence level, as the value is less than 0.01. So it can be concluded that all the hypotheses for all the three variables are positively supported, and the findings, however, the findings of this this study cannot be generalized to the entire population of the e-commerce taxpayers, mainly because we have focused on the Muslim taxpayers. So it is recommended that future studies should involve a high level number of respondents to allow researchers to generalize to the entire population of the selected group of respondents. So that's all for my presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Doctor, for that excellent presentation. Next, our second presenter, Farah Shamirahani Muhammad Hilmi from University Sultan Azlan Shah, who will be presenting on a paper titled Self-Characteristics of Muslim Entrepreneurs Among University Students in Malaysia, a conceptual paper. Please welcome.
Assalamualaikum, I'm Farah Shamirahani binti Muhammad Hilmi. I'm from University Sultan Azlan Shah. I'm here to talk about my paper, which is Self-Characteristics of Muslim Entrepreneur Among University Students in Malaysia. I'm sure this is everyone's favorite discussed topic. Entrepreneurial is the process where they do create something new or different that will bring benefit or opportunity to individual and society. Entrepreneur, also known as individuals who are brave enough to commit, taking risks and responsibility. As you know, Malaysia majority of its population is Muslim, and Islam encourages Muslims to venture into entrepreneurship to improve their standard living. In Malaysia, we can see there are many successful Muslim entrepreneurs, and they will be an icon and encourage the new generation of young entrepreneurs to succeed in innovative and can be an active entrepreneur. There are different characteristics between conventional entrepreneur and Muslim entrepreneur. Muslim entrepreneurs have their own motive and aim that need to follow Sharia law, and these activities are called as worship. Meanwhile, their motive in business are beyond the profit, and their goals are to be successful in this world and hereafter. To become successful entrepreneur based on Al-Quran and Hadith, Prophet Muhammad is the perfect entrepreneur with a great characteristic and personality in handling the business, management and leadership skill. To fulfill ibadah such as giving, zakat and donation, the Muslim entrepreneurs need to earn income and gaining profit from the halal source. In order to promote entrepreneur to society, government firstly need to prepare training and entrepreneurship education to enhance students' skills so that they can start to do their own business. This way can make students to be a good leader in business with a social responsibility and ability to change the society mind about entrepreneurs. If the Malaysian government want to produce more job creator than job seeker, they need way or plans to produce an outcome that not only creative but have unique ability to understand the market by sizing the opportunity given. There are three objectives in this paper which are to identify the self-characteristics of Muslim entrepreneurship among students from Islam perspective, to find out the role of Islamic entrepreneurship in order to achieve overall objective organization in world and hereafter, and lastly to evaluate the success factor in Muslim market. These are the three characteristics of Muslim entrepreneur. First is self-confidence, second is innovation, third is achievement motive. For self-confidence, entrepreneur with a high level of self-confidence can sustain effort until they achieve their goal, and they will not be afraid to expose their weakness to others. They also will able to accept obstacles and solve problems. For innovation, entrepreneurs that have high entrepreneurial self-characteristics can be seen where they can implement their new idea, improving the existing product or service, and creating dynamic product that can be benefit to user without wasting the resource. For achievement motive, entrepreneurs that success in their business can overcome obstacles, gain sense of satisfaction, and constant effort to master a task till they achieve their business objective. In conclusion, entrepreneurs that has a great personality are one of the characteristics of successful entrepreneurs. However, at a time when society's biggest issue is young generation are unemployment, business and government must work together to help them to develop an entrepreneurial mindset. That means fostering a culture which supports young people to take risks, set up businesses, create jobs, and become master of their own destiny. Whether it's through finance, mentoring, incentive, or training, we must all play our part so that this generation can achieve its full potential. Thank you.
Thank you to the presenter for the inputs being shared during the presentation just now. I would like to welcome our third presenter, Zurina Kamarudin from University Sultan Azlan Shah, who is going to present her paper on the influence of religion and business ethics towards entrepreneurship. Please welcome.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. I'm Zurina binti Kamarudin from Faculty of Management and Information Technology, University Sultan Azlan Shah, USAS. So today I will present to you the influence of religion and business ethics towards entrepreneurship. Okay. Researchers have long established a relationship between religion and entrepreneurship, but the influences of religion and entrepreneurial activities have not been clearly discussed. Therefore, the purpose of the article is to review the influences of spirituality and religiosity within the field of entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurs who identify religious interests as being of high importance, and also entrepreneurs who are highly orthodox in their faith, express more sensitive ethical judgment. Okay, so the religious belief intrude in daily life of people irrespective of religious or non-religious environment. Okay. This for introduction, this is three main terms in this article, which is religion, ethic, and entrepreneur. So for religion, important social institution that have strong norms and religious teachings that set behavior expectation. Okay, for ethic, the key component of good governance and high significant potential to affect public trust in all forms of government. So ethic also is a key component of government, good government. Okay, this is stated by Perry et al. 2014 and Joyce 2014. Okay, while for the entrepreneur, as we know, is a person who is doing a business. So entrepreneur is a mirror, a strong influence of individualism in religion. Okay, next. Business ethic. Business ethic is relates to the values an individual use to interpret whether any particular action or behavior is considered acceptable and appropriate. It's also one-to-one interaction with individual and customer. Some companies has bad reputation, making money alone without put into consideration of ethical behavior. Okay, for business ethic and religious, in Islam, basic belief is that God, which is Allah, is one and Muhammad is the last of divinely sent prophet of God. Muslims derive their ethical system from the teaching of Quran and Sunnah. Islam concept human well-being and good life that emphasize brotherhood and socio-economic justice required a balanced satisfaction of both material and spiritual needs. Okay, this is the issues for unethical practices in business. Okay. Most cases do not have the magnitude of the scandals seen in the press. Okay, somewhat unfair attitudes are multiplying rapidly in business. A danger is that people do not even realize their behavior is inappropriate. So managers believe that certain dirty tricks are good management practices. For example, delaying payment to the supplier to improve the cash flow is seen as efficient. Okay. Second dirty trick is unequal in the evaluation system and reward. Okay, next. There is considerable difficulty in translating the strategy set as the thought into practical implementation at the lower level. Contradictions are not easily handled by more junior manager. Okay, while for the issue for unethical practices in business on the supplier point of view is to promise to deliver on time, knowing that he cannot deliver and will find an excuse. Okay, second issue is refuse to deliver and approaching blackmail. So these are the common issues for the unethical practices in the business that we are rapidly doing. Okay. For the modern business, normally there are got pressure from all stakeholders, which is they want a better value, better stock price, and etc. Also a stiff competition, social and financial pressure, and also scarce resources. Shareholders want better value and a better stock price. Managers look for their bonuses, and the personnel strive for higher wages and better working conditions. Customers expect a higher quality at a lower price. Suppliers seek to raise their prices. Banks look for interest and guarantees. The government anticipates collecting taxes and impose constraints on businesses. So these are the issues, some issues of the unethical practices in business. So the conclusion is that in In this paper, explore the relationship between religion and entrepreneurship and suggests that religion does matter and influences the entrepreneurial decision. The religious affiliation supported this entrepreneur by creating a social network through which the social capital was provided in order to boost up the spirit of entrepreneurship. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you for that wonderful presentation. And now, let us move on to our fourth presenter, Dr. Kamaruzaman Muhammad from University Technology Mara, who will be presenting a paper titled Practice Influencing Professional Skepticism Among Muslim Auditors. The floor is yours. Please welcome.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh, and salam sejahtera everyone. First of all, we would like to thank you to the organizing committee for giving us the opportunity to present our research paper, Factors Influencing Professional Skepticism Among Muslim Auditors. Now, let us begin with the introductions of the research paper. One of the basic values of Islamic society is amal ma'ruf wa anil munkar. Amal ma'ruf, anil munkar. However, despite of this basic value, there are still cases of fraud occurring in the government departments, as we all aware, from time to time, right? Therefore, Jabatan Audit Negara or Auditors General is the institution that is directly play an important role in strengthening the above mentioned Islamic value. Okay, so moving on to our objective or objective of the study is this study is actually to examine the influence of the three independence variables, namely knowledge, time pressure, and personal characteristic of the government auditors on their professional skepticism. As we all aware, the professional skepticism is an important element in auditing process, which is the professional skepticism directly associated with the ability of the auditor to identify the signs of fraud and mistake in the financial statement, consequently influence the audit quality. So the three independence variables, knowledge, time, pressure, and personal characteristic, were selected based on previous study. Let us moving on to the literature review. So in terms of definition, professional skepticism came from skepticism, which is originated from the Greek words, which is referred to skeptikos, refer to inquiring and reflective. That is, being skeptics is often associated with questioning, careful observation, probing, reflection, and suspension of belief. So there are two types of, or two components of professional skepticism in accordance to Nolder and Kados 2018, whereby they divided the skepticism into skeptical in mind and skeptical attitude. So skeptical in mind is referred to the set, which is the way of thinking and processing of the information obtained. And the skeptical attitude refer to the way of auditor evaluate both cognitive and effective of audit evidence obtained. Okay, so let's move on to the hypothesis developed. These three independence variable, which is knowledge, time pressure, and personal characteristic. From the previous study, there are mixed results, especially for the auditor's knowledge, especially for the relationship between auditor's knowledge and professional skepticism. Certain study found that negative relationship, and certain study, on the other hand, found the positive relationship. Therefore, for the purpose of our study, we developed hypothesis 1, H1, there is significant relationship between auditor knowledge and professional skepticism. For the independence variable 2, most of the study found that significant relationship between time pressure and professional skepticism. Therefore, our hypothesis for this independent variable, H2, there is significant relationship between time pressure and professional skepticism. As for the independent variable number 3, that is personal characteristic, the same goes to the independent variable number 2, whereby most of the study found that significant relationship between auditor's personality and audit quality, and also its professional skepticism. Therefore, for the purpose of our study, we developed history. There is significant relationship between personal characteristic and professional skepticism. In terms of research design, our target sample is Muslim auditors of the government department in Malaysia. I mean the auditors from Jabatan Audit Negara of Malaysia. And in the departments, the auditor involved in auditing of financial statements, performance auditing, as well as governance auditing in the government sector, as well as the Badan Berkanun. In terms of research instrument, we are using the questionnaire survey, whereby this questionnaire survey divided into 4 parts. The first part about the respondent demographic information, which includes educational level and years of experience. These 2 demographics elements is actually represent the level of knowledge and experience of the respondents, okay, for the IV number 1. In terms of, for the second part is actually the assessment or evaluation of respondent level of professional skepticism. Third part of the research instrument is assessment on the respondent level of time pressure, and the last part on the evaluation of personality or personal characteristic of the auditor itself. In terms of the ways we collect the data, we use the Google form, and this Google form, the link for the Google form circulated through the WhatsApp as well as electronic emails. Let's move on to the results. Okay. So in terms of result regarding the GV, professional skepticism, the main score is 3.29. I mean, the score is from 1 to 5. So the average score, the total average score is 3.29. Is considered low score or a moderate level of score. This indicates that respondents have moderate judgment on professional skepticism. Okay, the total respondent is 86. As we mentioned just now, it is the auditors in the Jabatan Audit Negara. So in terms of result for the IV number 1, I mean the descriptive statistic for the IV number 1, the years of experience has been classified into 4 categories, from 0 to 6, first category, second 6 to 10, third 10 to 16, and lastly more than 16 years of experience. As we can see about the result is 2.62, is indicate that most or majority of the respondent having experience from 6 to 10 years of experience, moderate level of experience. In terms of descriptive statistic for the time pressure for independent variable number 2, as we can see from mean score, the overall mean score is 3.68. Which is the score should be from 1 to 5, and the overall mean score is 3.68. This indicates that respondent has some judgment or disjudgment on the time pressure. Okay, this indicates the auditors itself have the pressure in doing the audit work because of time consuming and maybe other reasons. In terms of result descriptive statistic for the personal characteristic, okay, as we can see here, altogether we have 28 the personal characteristic tested or evaluated on the government's auditor. As we can see here, the overall result at 2.97, whereby it is considered low score of result. Most of them is not what we call not the other side of the personal characteristic. The lowest one is peaceable, which is the mean score for this peaceable. That's number 5, is 2.28, the mean score for the peaceable, and for the enthusiastics is 3.68. Okay, so moving on to the multiple regression result on the multiple regression. Just now we have discussed about the descriptive statistic on the respondents' response. Now we're moving to the multiple regressions. Okay, as we can see here on the knowledge for the 3 category, 6 to 10 years, 10 to 15 years, and more than 16 years, the p-value is 0.7, 0.3, and 0.3 respectively, which is our significant level set at 0.05. So this indicates, the result indicates that knowledge does not affect the professional skepticism because of the what we call the p-value is higher than the 0.5 or 5%. Therefore, H1 is not supported. Okay, in terms of time pressure here, p-value is 0.00 and personal characteristic is 0.042, which is both less than 0.05 significant level. Therefore, H2 and H3 is supported. In conclusions, hypothesis results for the H1 and H2 is supported, whereby, H3 and H2 is supported, whereby time pressure and personal characteristic have significant relationship with the professional skepticism. On the other hand, H1, that is, knowledge has no significant relationship with the professional skepticism. In terms of future study, we recommend that this study can be extended by using the other variable as well as the number of respondents could be increased to have a better result in the future. However, our finding can be used by the Jabatan Audit Negara, which is they can take early prevention or early indicator in improving the audit independence, that it reflects the professional skepticism and consequently improve the audit quality. Okay, so with that, I thank you everyone. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.
Such a great sharing from the presenter. Thank you so much. Without further ado, let us please welcome together our fifth presenter, Dr. Nur Saada Hamisan alias Khair from University Science Islam Malaysia, who will be presenting a paper titled Emancipation of Women in Selected Malay Scholars, Writings in the 20th Century, a New Historicist Perspective. Please welcome.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Today I would like to present my paper entitled Emancipation of Women in Selected Malay Scholars' Writings in the 20th Century, a New Historicist Perspective. So me myself is Nur Saada from USIM, and the co-authors are Dr. Nur Azma and Prof. Muhammad Mustaqim. So this will be the content of this presentation. So as introduction, this introduction mentions about how the literatures on women's issues can be found in both the West and also the East. So in the West, for example, most of the group actively promotes women's rights of feminists since 1880s until today. But in the East, particularly in Egypt, the Muslim reformists also introduced a new approach of accommodating social change by highlighting the justice for women or equality for women. For example, Muhammad Abduh, Qasim Amin, Muhammad Al-Ghazali, as well as Abdul Halim Abu Shakar. So these are among the scholars who try to advocate women's rights in their writings in Egypt, especially in the end of 19th century and the early of 20th century. So in Malay world, scholars also actively produce their excessive works and publication in various fields beginning from 15th century. However, it is found that there are not many previous studies have been emphasizing that Malay scholars also contributed in discussing women's issues, except in few studies which focusing on the Malay manuscript in the 15th century to 18th century. So for your information, the Malay manuscript can be found as early as in the 15th century. But based on the research that I referred to, written by Harati Hassan 2014, she found that actually as early as in the 15th century, 16th century, and 17th century, and also 18th century, these manuscript entitled Sejarah Melayu, Tuhfatun Nafas, Hikayah Siak, dan Ringkasan Cerita Kelantan also has mentioned a little bit on women issues. For example, the leadership of females at that time. And then in 17th century, Shahrul Anwar in his research in 2012, he found that in Tashus Salatin, Sulalatus Salatin, and Bustan Salatin also has mentioned about women's issues as well. But it is interesting to emphasize here that actually one of the researcher in UM, Muhammad Anwar Ramli, has found that from 17th century to 20th century, there are beginning of family or not family, a women friendly approach that applies by the Muslim scholars or Malay scholars at that time. So women issues has become one of the important issues mentioned in the religious manuscript and also the Malay manuscript, which has been written either in Arabic or also in Jawi. So these are the examples, few examples of the manuscript in the 20th century that has mentioned whether directly or indirectly regarding women's issues. Okay, I will choose three works of the Malay writings, which are Kitab Adab Perempuan, which was published in 1926 by Ahmad Ibn Yaqub. That is the first one. And then the second one is Kitab Alam Perempuan, which was published in 1930 by Sheikh Ahmad Al-Hadi. Okay. And then the third work is Risalah Seruan kepada Jenis Yang Lembut Perempuan-Perempuan, which was published in 1959 by Abdullah Abdul Rahman. So these books actually has been written in Jawi, but has been republished by combining Rumi and also the Jawi publication in both in book, both written form in one book, which recently published by Academy Jawi Malaysia. So this is the first book. Okay, the title of the book is Kitab Adab Perempuan. It is published in 1926. I don't have so much time to explain the book in details, but you can read the full paper later. But interestingly, this book actually has four parts, but it is only republished. Only two parts have been republished, and this book has been used in a as a syllabus in a religious school for girls. Okay, so the author is from Johor Bahru, Johor, and he also has another publication, but this is the only book that he wrote on a woman. The second book, okay, is known as Kitab Alam Perempuan, which was written by Sheikh Ahmad Al-Hadi. I'm sure that some of you know who is this author. He wrote Hikayat Farida Hanum, and he was known as the father of emancipation of women in Malaya. And it is interestingly that actually this is the compilation of his article, which was published serially in magazine of Al Ikhwan previously. Okay, so he also has a lot of contributions in developing religious schools or schools for male and women. The third group is Risalah Seruan kepada Jenis Yang Lembut Perempuan-Perempuan, which was published in 1939. This book is actually the translated version to Malay from an Arabic book. And the Arabic book was written by Sheikh Muhammad Rashid Ridha, which is entitled Nida ila jinsul latif or hukukun nisa fil Islam. Okay, so it is very a good effort to translate Arabic book to Malay book, and this book has been used in many schools, okay, as the reference for women to know about their positions, to know about their roles and responsibility. So the methodology applied in this study is premised on a new historicism, which is applied to understand the author's background and the time in which their books were written. So most of these books were written in the early of 20th century. So as a qualitative study, the new historicist perspective involves different approaches in determining the relationship between cultural, social, political, and historical context as can be found in this writing. New historicism, okay, has been developed as a literature analysis tool responding to many factors which are reflecting the thoughts of the author and influencing the content of their writing. So in this methodology, it believed that a text is a product of the cultural, political, and social events of the time in which it is written. So it is applied in this study to examine how these three scholars emphasize educational, social, and political rights for Malay women in the early of 20th century. Okay, based on the methodology applied in the study, it can be found that actually the efforts to achieve independence have started gradually, which were not only accomplished by the politician but also Muslim scholars and civilians among men and women. So from this method, in analyzing the history and circumstances happened during the works of women were written by these three male scholars in the 20th century, we can find that there are five important findings which explain as in this slide. So it can be found these are five findings uh, based on the method used. Okay? First is both on all three writers um, emphasized on the education for women. For example, Sheikh Ahmad Hadi, he established his own schools, yeah? And then Abdurrahman also established girls' schools, and also Ahmad bin Yaqub used his own book in the schools, okay? In religious schools. And it can also be found that all these three male scholars are also male advocates. Okay, interestingly, the movement to fight for women's education and their involvement in society was reinforced by religious intellectuals and male reformers. And in these three books, the main theme is to gain the emancipation of the Malay women at the time. So it is a very important element of social and cultural rights change in Malaya in the 1920s. So these three works can be regarded as among the efforts in introducing the emancipation of women among the Malay society. And the fourth one is the connection of Islam and also women's rights. See, Islam is a religion that elevates the status and position of women. So the Quran emphasizes that there is no difference between men and women as both share their respective rights, roles, and responsibilities. And one important similarity between these three works chosen in the study is they all agree that both men and women are equal in terms of their rights to God in society, but each of them has a distinctive role yet not to belittle to one another, as has been supported by the Quran and Hadith. And the last one is nationalism and feminism actually has a yes, a good connection, okay, because these Malay women started with a struggle to fight for independence, okay. In the beginning, they just want to fight for the independence, okay, with the nationalist spirit, but simultaneously, the ideology of okay, of feminism influenced their advocacy of freedom, justice, and equality. As an in conclusion, okay, the early of the 20th century was a very important period of the emergence of Islamic reformism and feminism as a social and political movement. It was also a colonial period before Malaysia achieves independence in 1957. So most of these three works actually had been published before independence. Based on the relationship between the historical facts and events happened in Malaya during these three works were published, it can be found that there are many reasons contributed in the writing of their works. Okay, one of them, okay, is their educational and religious background is one of the important factors which contributed to the advocacy of the emancipation and empowerment of women respectively and mutually. Although some of them might partially be influenced by the reformist idea, okay, the primary sources from the Quran and Hadith have bigger influence to sustain the protection of a women's right and the removal of patriarchal subordination. The studies also are not worthy to be analyzed by using new tourism, as they have major impact on the Malay community in the comprehending and practicing the religion. So that's all from me. Thank you very much for your cooperation, and I hope you can refer to the full paper after this and contact me if you interested to ask questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for the interesting sharing. Next, we will be watching our sixth presentation titled The Relationship Between Islamic Banking and the Economic Growth Towards Sustainable Development in Malaysia, presented by Nur Izzah Muhammad Zahid from University Sultan Azlan Shah. Please welcome.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Izzah Muhammad Zahid, and I will present about the relationship between Islamic banking and economic growth towards sustainable development in Malaysia. So there are four agenda. First is Islamic financial market, second is Islamic banking economic growth, third is Islamic banking growth nexus in Malaysia, and fourth issues and suggestions. So before we go to the Islamic banking economic growth, so we should know where Islamic banking come from. Islamic banking is among the Islamic financial market components, as well as takaful, Islamic capital market, Islamic markets, and derivative markets, and so on and so forth. So how about Islamic banking economic growth in this world? So we know about the Middle East and North Africa countries, or known as MENA regions. There are around 19 countries of MENA countries. According to Bokatim and Ben Musa 2018 said that Islamic financial development has a significant effects on the economic growth in the MENA countries. So they can say that many products in Islamic financial helps to develop the economic growth in those countries. Then Pakistan, the development of Islamic financial factors in Pakistan will give benefit to its economic performance. According to Nawaz and others 2019, this according to the previous article that they can see that Islamic financial factor also give a good impact to Pakistan. And you go to the nearest to Malaysia, which is Brunei. According to Ali 2018, performance of Islamic bank has a significant relationship with economic growth. So performance of Islamic banks, it is related to the efficiency of the bank, the bank management itself, you know. So how about in Malaysia? Islamic finance in Malaysia, how about? I can say that Islamic banking growth nexus in Malaysia, according to Furkani and Mulyani 2009, said that this found that significant effect between fixed investment and Islamic bank at the long run. Meaning to say that at the long run, fixed investment and Islamic bank has signed a positive relationship to our countries. Some of articles they use some previous articles they use gross domestic product, some use fixed investment, but most of previous article whenever they want to use in measuring economic growth, commonly they will use gross domestic product. So how about Custom 2016 said that total financing give impacts to the real economic activities in Malaysia, both in the long run and also short run. So according to Khalid and Taker 2017, total deposit and total financing, total asset of Islamic banking have a positive relationship to the gross domestic product at the long run. Yeah, gross domestic product is commonly used by a previous article to measure economic growth of Malaysia. Next is according to Sapuan 2018, total financing and investment have a significant results to economic performance in Malaysia at the long run. So this is the framework of Shared Prosperity Vision 2030. It has been announced by our previous Prime Minister, Dr. Mahathir Mohamad. They announced that there are 15K economic growth activities and surprisingly, Islamic Finance Hub 2.0 has been the first place as one of the key to our economic growth activities for the long run 2030, and goes on to digital economy, digital revolution 4.0 and others. And this to tell us that Islamic Finance has convinced by our government to boost our economic growth at the future. So how about issues and challenges? To integrate profit and loss sharing concept, you know that Islamic finance promote sales contract, while conventional promote loan contract. So we know that from sales contract it can we can gain profit, while from the loan contract we can gain interest as part of the profit. Some finance try to promote more on sales contract, not mainly on debt based contract, but it is have a lot of issues such as give more risk. It is more fees to be incurred by bank. So yeah, Sharia committee and expert try to counter this issue, how we can really excel to integrate profit and loss sharing concept. And the second bottom-up approach, that most of the countries who promote Islamic finance, it is a top-down approach. A top-down approach means the government itself put more efforts to invest, to contribute, to give more contribution in Islamic finance, but the community itself sometimes didn't understand about Islamic finance. So bottom-up approach where the community understand, the community have awareness about the importance of Islamic finance, and then it can be supporting each other, support the efforts from government to promote Islamic finance. Third is price volatility in natural gas and oil markets. You know that the oil boom during 1970, where Islamic finance starting in the Middle East country, so it is from gas and oil markets boom at the time. You know that from that we know that how Islamic finance start to develop in the Western and also in Asian region in this world. So how about if these non-renewable resources start to downturn, start to have a problem and it's not stable anymore? What should we do? So we have to think deeper about this. So how we go to the suggestion. The suggestion is continuous product innovative, known as value-based intermediation. This have been announced by our governor in Bank Negara Malaysia during 2018, said that rather than Islamic bank just about making profit like conventional bank, we should have more on values. We concern on 3 P's, which is profit, planet, and people. We give more awareness about not only about profit, but it help others such SME, small medium enterprise, to help people around there to boost their own economic activities. And then what range of innovative Islamic financial product, fintech. Now we are facing pandemic COVID-19. So digital technology become very spread everywhere, using everywhere, online webinar and so on and so forth. So Islamic banking finance also have to do something with their products, their performance. They need to have a very good product, so should have a very good fintech and better than conventional product, and then increase in talent and expert in Islamic finance. So we have ISRO in SEF. It is a place where we can do more research. We studies more about Islamic finance, and also as well as in the universities, public or private university, we also offer Islamic banking in degrees, masters, and PhD. So it is another ways to increase the talent and space of finance. So we can have a lot of ideas, suggestion. We may have a better ways to develop Islamic finance. So we come to the end of the slide. Conclusion from our slide. Islamic finance can be one of the sustainable tools to the economic development in Malaysia. Therefore, Malaysia needs to gear up the efficiency of Islamic financial industry, as well as being innovative and promote values such in the value-based intermediation. So that let us work together so that we can have better development for Islamic finance at the future. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. That's all from me. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much for the presentation just now. For our seventh presenter, let us extend our warm welcome to Walusimbi Yunus from University Sultan Azlan Shah to present his paper titled Global Challenges Facing Muslim Education, a Case of Education in Uganda. Please welcome.
Hello, you are welcome to the WCIT 2020 conference, in which I'm going to look at the challenges facing Muslim education, a case of education in Uganda. The presenter is Walusimbi Yunus, and my co-presenter is Katumba Faisal. The nature of Islamic education. Islam and education is based on the fundamental belief that Allah and the Quran and the traditions of the Prophet are key sources of knowledge. The education system in the early days of Islam was not well streamlined with a proper curriculum, and Muslim education from the very beginning took place mostly in mosques as study centers. The nature of the study circles, at times called the halqa, varied in approach, and the method of instruction usually emphasized discussion and memorization of the Quran. And with the growth and expansion of Islam, the madrasas started. In Arabia, madrasa simply means school, and madrasa as a concept has evolved over time. So the first known madrasa were established in 1005 AD by the Fatimid Caliphate. The madrasa system was as a pedagogical approach, as a way to preserve the authentic Islamic heritage, was very much used at the time. With the advent of colonialism, the madrasas changed to the Western way of education. Now, the Western style of dissemination and management of knowledge at that time then got fused up into the Muslim system, which resulted into a clash of morals and values with the Muslim world, particularly in the Southeast Asia. The nature, principles, and ideologies or philosophies of Islam differ very much when it comes to the Western approach. The Western system of education, it's a greater challenge to Islamic moral character, because the Western ideology does not consider the Islamic principles as the basis for social conduct. Ashraf 1979 in Hilgerdorf 2003 says that the outcome of this kind of education produces secularist intellectual experts who pursue solely material desires and comfort, which is not in consonance with the Muslim education. Therefore, the challenges that madrasas face is to produce students who can effectively contribute to the knowledge-based economy, as Zain tells us. Muslim education in Africa started way back with the coming of the Arabs around the 17th, 18th, and 19th century. The colonialism introduced this new type of schooling, and when they came, they introduced the new type of schooling, which is the Western style of education. The colonialists changed the outlook as well as the form of schooling in the greater part of the African region. Therefore, the Western education was now associated with economic advancement at the time. The nature of the secular education for Muslims became increasingly complex. Ought it to be sexualized, whether it ought to be sexualized or Islamized? That was a very tricky element with the advent of the Western type of education. And what principles should it inform its underlying epistemology? So the absence of Islam in the curriculum raised very serious complications to many Muslim scholars. Muslim education in Uganda witnessed or started around the 1888, especially with the coming of the Arabs. But that time, there was no organized schools at the time. And at that time, Muslim education was offered in mosques or prayer places. It was also at the homes of those who had some knowledge about Islamic knowledge, commonly known as Kabalaza, which literally means the veranda, because the teachings normally were conducted around the veranda. The coming of Christianity later changed the form of education in Uganda, and there was a shift from the non-formalized system to a formalized system of education as brought by the Europeans. Now, learning was geared towards the development of professionals. Now, the dual curriculum was introduced among the Muslims to make sure that Islamic teachings do not face extinction in the face of growing Christianity within the country. And Muslims were divided into spheres such as secular and religion. And that kind of division really became a problem as to how they can easily cope up with the Western style given the Muslim style. However, the secular education contains some of these subjects that facilitate or increase the likelihood of a child finding work as a graduate. According to Abdul Hassan Ali Nadawi, as seen in Bahad 2016, the Western style has failed to offer any guidance in search of righteous living and good moral qualities as compared to the Muslim education. In Uganda, it has reduced Muslim commitment to the Islamic belief, cultures, and their natural inclination to their creator, says Matovu 2013. Therefore, the conflict between Islamization of knowledge as a result of the Western style of education brought a conflict as to how Islamic knowledge can be Islamized. Islamization of knowledge refers to attempt to reconcile Islam and modernity. And knowledge in Islam constitutes what secular scholars today have referred to as epistemology, which is about the nature, origin, and methods of knowledge. In Islam, knowledge has its origin from God. While there are differences between Islam and Western epistemologies, there are areas in which we can see knowledge integration. There is the Western knowledge that is good, that does not necessarily need to be Islamized. For example, the scientific knowledge. However, there are inadequacies in the Western style of education. It does not reflect the aims and objectives of Islamic education, and it also falls short in educating the whole person, and it does not integrate religion in the curriculum. The Western style of education relies on rational faculties to discover the truth, yet in Islam, divine guidance that leads to the highest form of truth. Islamization, it has been criticized in the form that human beings need to Islamize themselves before thinking of Islamizing knowledge, as said Abdallah. And it has also been criticized in the way that there is no need to reject all Western knowledge, especially science, culture, and civilization, because there are many positive aspects that contribute to Western knowledge. The two bring about what we call Islamophobia. The Western style of education and the Muslim education has created confusion, especially amongst the Westerners who have developed Islamophobia. And Islamophobia is an exaggerated fear, hatred, and hostility towards Islam that is perpetrated by negative stereotypes resulting in bias, discrimination, marginalization, and exclusion of Muslims from social, political, and civic life, as Muscat and Bahati tell us. Common facts about Islamophobia is that Islam is unchanging and refuses to adapt to new realities. Islam shares no common values and other religions. Islam, there is no relevance that their ideas are irrational, which are very critical to the Muslim. Now, Islamophobia and Muslim education. There has been bullying, which has been part of the negative aspect. Discrimination in the classroom. The Muslim code of dress has also been, the Muslims have been refused to put on hijab, especially amongst Muslim schools. Proactive Muslim response to Islamophobia. We need to be proactive, not reactive, while explaining the true message and essence of Islam. Muslims should focus on explaining what Islam is and not what is not. So when a Muslim is in the wrong, let us accept and do our best to correct him or her. There is no need to be in denial, for it will not help. Let us teach the message of Islam from moderation rather than extremism. The war on Islamophobia does not need to be confrontational, because it is a war in a war everybody is a loser. There cannot be a good war. Muslims should always portray the true picture of Islam and excel as role models. In conclusion, the global challenge of Muslim educations are still outstanding. The madrasa still remains the center of Muslim education throughout the Muslim world. Muslim education in Uganda is moving towards a dual curriculum of education, which looks at Muslim education and the secular Western education. It has been established that reconciling Western way of knowledge dissemination with the Islamic way still remains a challenge. Muslims face Islamophobia, and the effects have been seen in areas like discrimination, bullying, and the ban on Muslim code of dress, which has negatively affected Muslim education. There is therefore need to be proactive and not reactive in explaining the true message of Islam. Thank you for listening.
Thank you to the presenter for the valuable sharing just now. Now, let us witness our 8th presentation titled Military Institution in Malaysia, Its Contribution to the National Civilization by Dr. Burhanuddin Jalal from University Pertahanan Nasional Malaysia. Please welcome.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera. Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan yang diberkati Allah sekalian, selamat datang ke seminar kali ini. Baik, pada kali ini saya ingin membentangkan satu kertas yang bertajuk Military Institution in the Military Institution in Malaysia is Contribution to National Civilization. Maknanya peranan institusi agama Malaysia dalam konteks ketahanan negara, kebangsaan. Jadi kertas ini ditulis bersama oleh beberapa orang rakan saya, iaitu Hasan Al-Banna, kemudian saya Tilgani dan juga Amnas saya Ismail. Dan kajian ini adalah sebahagian daripada kajian yang telah dibuat berkaitan dengan pengadilan Islam dan kerajaan tentera yang telah dibuat pada beberapa tahun yang lalu. Dan kertas ini sebenarnya adalah untuk melihat tentang peranan ATM itu dalam konteks berikan sumbangan kepada kecemerlangan, ketamudan dan keamanan negara Malaysia, dan juga dengan itu, dengan aman itu, ia boleh menyumbang kepada kemajuan dan kesejahteraan rakyat. Jadi saya izinkan saya untuk membentangkan kertas ini dalam bahasa Malaysia, dan saya sampul dengan bahasa Inggeris lah untuk kita hati bersama. Baik. Kertas ini juga banyak membincangkan tentang peranan kagat sebagai salah satu dalam core ATM, itu adalah core agama tertentu atau kagat, dan kagat dalam konteks memberikan sumbangan yang besar dalam membentuk ataupun memberikan sumber untuk membina sumber manusia yang hebat, tentera yang baik, dan juga berikan sumbangan kepada organisasi ATM itu sendiri. Dan kita tahu bahawa dalam konteks organisasi tentera ada 3 kekuatan yang penting, iaitu strength of firepower, kekuatan tembakan firepower. Itu maknanya alat senjata yang hebat, hebat, lengkap dan sebagainya. The strength of firepower, satu. Kemudian the ability of maneuver, kebolehan untuk bergerak, logistik. Jadi maksudnya kemampuan untuk bergerak dengan pantas, sama ada dari segi orangnya ataupun dari segi alat-alat ataupun kemampuan yang ada dari segi aspek logistik lah, bergerak dalam darat, laut udara, dia boleh bergerak dengan cepat, dengan pantas. The ability of maneuver, dia boleh bergerak dengan pantas, cepat, logistiknya dan kuat dan hebat sebagainya. Dan satu lagi yang penting adalah the strength of the fighting spirit among the personnel. Lalu satu lagi, kekuatan daya juang dalam kalangan anggotanya, personel itu. Daya juang, kemudian dan kemampuan untuk berperang itu, semangat, dan juga semangat kekuatan, dan juga semangat dalam konteks kita agama, semangat jihad itu dalam berjuang untuk agama, bangsa dan negara. Itu di antara kekuatan sesebuah organisasi lah, kekuatan dari segi firepower, tembakan, banyak alat-alat senjata yang hebat, yang canggih. Kemudian kebolehan untuk bergerak dengan pantas, dan juga kekuatan dari segi orangnya. Kalau kita orang itu juga penting, itu penting dalam konteks itu, dari organisasi ketenteraan. Baik. Kemudian saya sebutkan tadi tentang kertas ini. Kertas ini menjelaskan tentang peranan kagat, khususnya dalam konteks memberikan sumbangan melalui penglihatan Islam ataupun pendidikan Islam. Jadi ini penting, ini penting dalam konteks membina sebuah organisasi tentera. Kagat berperanan untuk memberikan khidmatnya dalam konteks pendidikan agama. Jadi kertas ini sikit sebanyak membincangkan ataupun berikan penerangan tentang usaha-usaha KAGAT khususnya dalam konteks peringatan Islam dan kalangan tentera. Saya nak jelaskan sedikit tentang KAGAT ini ataupun Kor Agama Tentera, dan dia telah pun KAGAT ini telah dibubuhkan pada tahun 1985, 9 April 1965, dan dia adalah kor yang ke-16 dalam konteks tentera darat. Jadi tentera darat ada 17 kor dan KAGAT yang ke-16 lah yang ditubuhkan tahun 1985. Dan KAGAT memberikan sumbangan kepada tiga cabang perkhidmatan ATM, darat, laut dan udara. Jadi ini berbeza dengan kor-kor lain dalam ATM itu, dalam tentera itu ada yang hanya berkhidmat dalam konteks single service lah. Okay. So KAGAT ni juga mungkin sama juga dengan kor ubat atau kor kesihatan yang juga menyumbang kepada ketiga-tiga perkhidmatan. Jadi satu juga yang berbeza dengan kor lain. Jadi kor agama KAGAT memberikan sumbangan kepada ketiga perkhidmatan ATM. Itu KAGAT ataupun kor agama tentera, dan dalam bahasa Inggerisnya Military Religious Corps, Islamic Military Religious Corps atau KAGAT, dan dia juga dalam konteks perkhidmatan di luar negara ataupun negara-negara lain, dia ada dipanggil chaplain, tapi chaplain ni dalam konteks ada pelbagai agama lah, ada Kristian, ada Islam, ada Buddha. Kalau di Indonesia tu disebut sebagai bintal lah, benda mental lah, dia ada pelbagai agama di situ. Tapi dalam Malaysia adalah di negara Malaysia hanya agama Islam saja, menyumbang kepada agama Islam. Baik, jadi dalam konteks secara umumnya saya ingin jelaskan tentang KAGAT ini, role of KAGAT in Malaysian Armed Forces. So ada beberapa perkara lah tentang peranan KAGAT dalam konteks ATM itu. Satu ialah plan, coordinate and implement Islamic education and dakwah programs for all members of the armed forces. Itu merancang, melaras dan melaksanakan usaha dakwah Islamiah dan penghayatan Islam pada seluruh pegawai dan anggota ATM. Plan, coordinate and implement Islamic education. Jadi maknanya merancang, melaksana dan juga melaras aspek-aspek pendidikan Islam dan dakwah Islamiah pada seluruh anggota ATM. Jadi maknanya anggota, keluarga dan anak-anak, ada tiga perkara yang penting situ. Kemudian teach and propagate Islamic knowledge with emphasis of high morals, positive attitude, spirit the corps, and give a better understanding on the role of armed forces from an Islamic perspective. Maknanya memberi dan mengembangkan pengajaran ilmu Islam, ilmu Islam, memberi dan mengembangkan pengajaran ilmu Islam, khususnya penekanan kepada ketinggian akhlak, the high moral itu, high moral, positive attitude, ataupun sifat-sifat yang baik, sikap yang baik, ataupun spirit the corps, semangat daya juang itu, setia kawan, spirit the corps, setia kawan itu, di samping memberikan kepahaman di dalam arti kata sebenar tentang perkhidmatan tentera pengikut pandangan Islam. Jadi maknanya kita menjelaskan tentang apakah sebenarnya berkhidmat sebagai tentera itu dengan semudi-mudinya. Itu yang kedua. Yang ketiga, implement and enforce laws and rules pertaining of Islamic implementation as ruled by the various state authorities. Melaksana dan menguatkuasakan segala peraturan dan undang-undang dan hukum Islam yang telah diputuskan oleh Majlis Agama Islam, Persekutuan dan negeri-negeri lah. Jadi ini oleh kerana agama dalam konteks kuasa negeri dan KAGAT dan perkhidmatan ATM tu merata tempat dan mungkin di negeri-negeri yang berbeza. Jadi KAGAT membantu pihak kuasa negeri dalam aspek peraturan dan juga undang Islam di negeri masing-masing lah. Ini aspek penting lah. Dan yang keempat, assist in boosting moral among soldiers of the armed forces. Boosting moral lah, maknanya apa? Memberikan bantuan usaha mempertingkatkan semangat. Boosting moral lah, memberikan semangat, semangat kepilawaan anggota tentera seimbang dengan perjuangan ATM. Ini penting. Jadi maknanya dalam konteks berikan semangat daya juang itu dalam konteks agama. Ini peranan Kagat, anggota Kagat itu. Okey, so baik. Jadi ini peranan penting Kagat yang ingin saya sampaikan, dan kajian ini dibuat secara secara soal selidik. Kita telah mengedarkan beberapa soal selidik kepada 383 responden, dan jawapan-jawapan itu dianalisis menggunakan SPSS, dan juga kita dapat beberapa pandangan tentang peranan Kagat ini secara umumnya dalam usaha untuk meningkatkan peranan ATM itu dalam konteks memberikan sumbangan kepada ketamadunan ataupun kemajuan negara Malaysia lah, aspek keamanan dan juga sebagainya. Jadi maknanya beberapa pandangan itu telah diberikan, dan ternyata bahawa Kagat berperanan untuk memberikan sumbangan yang hebat kepada pembentukan akhlak, moral, dan juga budi pekerti dan juga semangat daya juang dalam konteks keterangan itu. Jadi mungkin ketahnya ringkas saja saya ingin berikan sedikit gambaran. Jadi gambaran tentang peranan Kagat dan beberapa kajian ini. Dalam kajian ini terdapat beberapa pandangan tentang ataupun analisis tentang pandangan responden terhadap Kagat itu. Jadi maknanya ada beberapa perkara yang telah diberikan oleh responden tentang peranan Kagat. Satu tentang pelaksanaan tugas mereka. Jadi maknanya Kagat itu bertugas dalam konteks agama itu, banyak ruang lingkup yang diberikan, perkhidmatan, nasihat, imam, pengajaran, di maknanya semua yang diberikan itu baik, berkesan, maknanya penghidup mereka bertugas dengan baik, jadi maknanya puas hati terhadap tugas-tugas yang telah diberikan. Satu. Kemudian dari aspek perkhidmatan itu, delivery system itu mungkin juga bagus, dan juga beberapa pandangan diberikan amat baiklah, amat baik, dan beberapa ini di antara rajah gambaran tentang secara umumnya bagus, maknanya banyak pandangan-pandangan yang baik dan juga memberikan responden terhadap Kagat itu. Namun demikian ada beberapa teguran daripada pihak responden yang mengatakan bahawa Kagat perlu untuk memperbaiki lagi perkhidmatan dalam konteks untuk lebih baiklah, sumbangan lebih baik pada Kagat pada ATM itu. Pertama tentang maknanya usaha-usaha dakwah itu perlu dipertingkatkan, pertingkat dakwah itu dengan lebih baik, maknanya orangnya, usahanya ataupun daya kreativitinya perlu baik, pengurusan yang lebih bagus, kemudian usaha-usaha dakwah itu perlu dipertingkatkan dengan berbagai cara. Satu. Yang kedua, maknanya Kagat itu perlu memperbaiki lagi matlamatnya, goal achievement itu. Usaha-usaha itu perlu ditingkatkan lagi, maknanya banyak ruang-ruang yang perlu diperbaiki, sama dari segi aspek-aspek penyampaian, keboleh pengurusannya. Jadi maknanya ini perlu dipertingkatkan, sama ada dari segi sumber manusia ataupun pentadbiran. Jadi maknanya banyak lagi perlu dibuat dalam usaha untuk meningkatkan lagi peranan Kagat itu. Yang ketiga, sumber manusia itu. Jadi maknanya mungkin kompetensi itu masih lagi rendah. Jadi maknanya usaha itu perlu ditingkatkan lagi. Jadi kompetensi perlu dilaksanakan, maknanya kompetensi ini perlu dimaksimalkan dari segi strateginya, dari segi ilmunya, dari segi kepakarannya, latihannya perlu dipertingkatkan, maknanya accountability-nya, dari aspek disiplinnya, keintegritinya, dan juga aspek ketulusan itu. Jadi ini penting untuk membina organisasi lebih baik, dan kompetensi dalam kalangan anggota agama juga perlu dipertingkatkan masa ke masa. Jadi ini di antara yang perlu untuk Kagat memberikan sumbangan lebih baik kepada ATM itu. Jadi saya juga ingin secara kesimpulannya bahawa usaha-usaha Kagat ini terhadap penghayatan Islam dalam ATM telah pun berlaku sejak 1933 lagi, walaupun dipanggil masa itu dipanggil guru agama kan, kemudian ditubuhkan ko agama dan telah berperanan dalam konteks Majlis Islam dan ATM itu. Dan hari ini banyak perubahan yang berlaku dalam konteks organisasi ATM dan lebih Islamik pada hari ini. Jadi maknanya walaupun cabaran-cabaran banyak hari ini dan juga pelbagai, so ko agama tentera telah pun berperanan dengan lebih baik dan juga bersedia untuk menyumbangkan peranan mereka, perkhidmatan dalam konteks ATM itu. Jadi maknanya ciri-ciri profesional itu juga perlu dipertingkatkan dari segi aspek pengetahuan, kemahiran, kepimpinan dan juga tentang ciri-ciri peribadi anggota itu. Jadi barangkali itu sikit sebanyak yang ingin saya sampaikan secara ringkas tentang kertas ini, dan pada asasnya kajian ini dapat berikan sumbangan kepada ATM sikit sebanyak dan juga kepada negara. Sekian saja, terima kasih atas kesudian saudara memberikan tumpuan pada perbincangan kertas ini. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Wallahu a'lam.
Thank you to the presenter for that excellent presentation. Next, our ninth presenter, Kakairi Abdu from University Sultan Azlan Shah, who will be presenting on a paper titled The Socio-Economic Conditions of Muslims in Uganda, the Role of Muslim Intellectuals. Please welcome.
A'udhu billahi minash-shaytanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I'm called Kakairi Abdu, a PhD student at Sultan Azlan Shah University. I am happy to be presenting a paper in this conference titled The Socio-Economic Conditions of Muslims in Uganda, the Role of Muslim Intellectuals. This paper was co-authored by a brother called Muzungu Ibrahim, and we are happy to both be presenting this paper. Muslims in Uganda are facing a number of socio-economic challenges amidst the rising numbers of Muslim intellectuals who are meant to help them. These challenges have negatively affected the Muslim community and stagnated their progress. This has forced many people to question the role and relevancies of the Muslim intellectuals in Uganda. Muslims, who constitute 14% of the country's total population, which is 44.7 million people, according to the CIA Fact Book of 2019, face challenges such as 1, lack of access to resources, and this is basically because these resources are managed and concentrated in the hands of a few individuals. Poor representation in government at both senior and lower levels of administration, where decisions about the allocations of resources to health, education, and housing sectors, among others, are taken. Because of the above, Muslims have been denied the opportunity to participate in the decision-making processes where many issues affecting them are articulated and allocated resources. This underrepresentation has also resulted into social, cultural, economic, and political backwardness of Muslim communities in the world. That is according to Musisi and Kigundu 2018. For example, many Muslims in Uganda cannot afford decent accommodation, they cannot afford good education, and good healthcare services for themselves and their children. And that is still according to Musisi and Kigundu 2018. Available data shows that out of the 10 best performing O-level schools in 2017, only one in the 9th position was Muslim founded. Furthermore, out of the best 50 schools listed, only 7 were Muslim founded or affiliated, but again with many non-Muslims, and this is basically according to Musoke 2017. Roles of Muslim intellectuals. Based on the above, Muslim intellectuals in Uganda are expected to be involved in directing and guiding society. They are also supposed to engage government so as to improve the visibly bad socioeconomic conditions of Muslims. They are supposed to engage in applied research activities meant to diagnose societal problems, but most particularly Muslim problems. Unfortunately, many Muslims who are supposed to be doing all of the above are trapped and fully involved in internal Muslim wrangles and bickering instead of taking neutral positions to concentrate their efforts on guiding and directing society. They continue to openly identify and show support for different Muslim groups created after disagreements within Muslim community, and this has put the plight of many Muslims and that of society at large in Uganda at stake. This takes us to the strategies Muslim intellectuals can use to improve the welfare conditions of Muslims and society as a whole. And these approaches that the Muslim intellectuals are supposed to employ draw upon the sources of Islamic faith, culture, and tradition, which put into context the past, the present, and the future conditions of man. And they involve an integration of moral and material, spiritual, ethical, and social physical aspects of life. These approaches include zakat, and according to a number of scholars, proper execution of the zakat system, which is the primary tool according to Islam in the elevation of poverty, can help to avert the above situation. The Muslim intellectuals can also engage in endowment ventures, waqf, such as building schools, establishing companies, or dedicating large gardens, or building housing estates for the benefit of the poor. Advocating for education which emphasizes both hard skills, that is to do with the ability and knowledge, soft skills, that is to do with character and ethics, and vocational skills. They can also engage in enhancing the capacities of the beneficiaries through cooperative efforts. These Muslim intellectuals can also establish civil society organizations through which Muslims can be organized and helped to have a say in the policies which affect them. They are also meant to use the rights-based approach aimed at making Muslims aware of their rights and standing up to demand for them. The Muslim intellectuals can also start up microfinance institutions to mobilize savings and disperse interest-free loans to the client members. Last but not least, these Muslim intellectuals are meant to establish self-help projects and programs, such as the Mendeki self-help groups in Singapore and many others in Indonesia and Philippines, which have been used to transform the lives of the locals. In conclusion, Muslim welfare conditions in Uganda and of those in the diaspora continue to be bad amidst the increasing Muslim enlightenment and Muslim intellectuals. This has forced many people to question the role and the relevancies of the Muslim intellectuals who are meant to champion change in society, and that is according to a number of scholars. However, concerted efforts from the different stakeholders, with the Muslim intellectuals taking a lead in this effort, can help to minimize the welfare challenges Muslims in Uganda and elsewhere are facing. In the words of Seychelles, the intellectuals constitute a critical and adversarial set of cadres who are the stimulants of change in society. Muslim intellectuals, therefore, in Uganda can employ all the above strategies in an effort to improve the welfare challenges Muslims in Uganda are facing. I want to take this opportunity to finally thank you so much for listening to me, and I submit.
Thank you to the presenter for the inputs being shared during the presentation just now. For our last presenter, let us give a big hand to Yusuf Katono from University Sultan Azlan Shah, who will be presenting a paper titled Are Marketers Stranded Between Ethical Expectations and Customer Satisfaction? Please welcome.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Yusuf Katono, a PhD candidate from University Sultan Azlan Shah. So today, as the theme of the conference suggests, I will be looking at the marketing dilemma. Ladies and gentlemen, we always tend to forget and skip this core challenge that marketers are facing on a day-to-day basis. So a marketer is stranded between ethical expectations and consumer satisfaction. Remember, when we talk about ethics, different stakeholders in the community have their own definitions of what is a good ethical practice, of what they expect from one another. So we shall look at the introduction, the objectives, the methodology used by this paper, and lastly, we shall discuss the results and look at the recommendations therefrom. So, as an introduction to this paper, we all note that from the American Marketing Association that marketing aims at creating and delivering customer value at a profit. So marketers always aim at constantly satisfying consumer needs. However, we have always registered requisitions, calls, and pressure from given stakeholders calling marketers to concentrate more on green marketing, to produce eco-friendly products. They are telling marketers to also add on societal responsibilities. So this is making the work of marketing extremely difficult. Why? The demands from different stakeholders like government and other societal groups seem not to be uniform. So every group is calling for its own demands from marketers. So who should marketers really seek to satisfy? The consumer, the environmentalists, government, religion, or international watchdogs? So we had said that marketers aim to satisfy consumers. However, due to these very many groups, there is need to also consider the different kinds of demands from these other stakeholders. So objective one of this paper will be to present evidence suggesting the extent to which marketers are appearing stranded in their quest to satisfy consumers. Then two, the paper will also go ahead to isolate and bring to fore the different criticisms against the marketing mix by different stakeholders. So for starters, this paper is a literature review paper that mainly concentrated on previously related studies until 2019. Okay, results of the paper are consumers have uncontrollable purchasing power in the market. Ladies and gentlemen, consumers nowadays have got a lot of purchasing power. When you look at the demand and supply side, there are so many suppliers in the market versus there are so many suppliers in the market versus the number of consumers. So when suppliers are many of a given product, it means that a customer can easily go to another service provider. If you so get glued, get fascinated by fulfilling all ethical demands of those who call for eco-friendly products. Then too, the increasing cost of eco-friendly products. Ladies and gentlemen, it is noted by several studies that producing an eco-friendly product is very expensive. However, you're not guaranteed that customers will wish to buy that product because of its increased price. Now that it has taken you a lot of money to produce, then you will need to shift that kind of burden to the customers in terms of pricing. And who tells you customers will be willing to pay very higher prices just because you produced an eco-friendly product? So now consumer marketers will find themselves in that dilemma. Marketers aim at satisfying consumer needs to ensure repeat purchase. That's why they always advertise, they always give discounts, they do so many things to make sure they entice customers to always go back and buy. The question is, what is so wrong with you going to utilize Total every other time you want to buy fuel for your vehicle? However, it is being called encouraging addiction by the critics of marketing. So if a customer buys a given product repeatedly, critics of marketing are saying that that is encouraging addiction. Consumers will always demand products, whether you call it unhealthy or risky product, it is the demand of the consumer. For example, consumers will demand guns. Consumers will demand tobacco products like cigarettes and alcohol. And these products, ladies and gentlemen, are even licensed by government. However, ethical scholars will go ahead and say that marketers are to blame for the existence of such products, and yet government is collecting a lot of taxes from them. The other thing is consumers demand price discounts. So when you enter a shop, we normally bargain for reduced prices. But critics of marketers are saying that that is instigating impulse purchase, that when marketers reduce prices, we are calling on now customers to come and buy even those who wouldn't have bought, which I think is creating a dilemma for marketers. What should they do? Should they price now products at an expensive price to discourage people from buying, or price them at a low cost to encourage them to purchase? If you're a marketer, you will also be in a dilemma. Consumers demand highly personalized products. Nowadays, people are going for vehicles that will greet them. Good morning, sir. You're welcome. Where are you going? How was your night? But when marketers now provide such a kind of vehicle, critics will say that we are propagating the demand of luxuries, yet the world has got so many problems to deal with, right? Marketers promote products. It is natural that when I produce a product, you might be in one of the villages of your country and you need information to know that a given product exists on the market. However, when marketers do promote the products, critics are saying that no, we are awakening suppressed demand, that consumers have got some kind of demand that they don't want to be reminded about. But when we do promote as marketers that we are awakening demand that shouldn't have happened in the first place, and therefore a criticism towards marketing, that we are encouraging overspending, that we're encouraging materialism. All right, salesmen, as a side of marketing, seek to increase their pay by working long hours, by working bonus hours, by working on weekend, by skipping their annual leave when it's due. However, when this happens, critics are saying we are encouraging work addiction and employee captivity, right? So should we send them away when they want to earn an extra coin? That one is a question for me and you. All right, we all go to given places seeking to have fluid processes. We don't want processes that will make us wait in lines, queue up for services. The world is moving out from such kind of dreams because customers have time as the best kind of resource. So issues like, simple processes like ATM machines will be installed across the entire planet to enable you make transactions on time. Nowadays, we are talking of online transactions. But when such measures are put on board, critics and ethical scholars will tell you that we are discouraging the saving culture because we are making it so easy for people to spend. So now, who should we listen to? Should we listen to the customer who needs ease while spending, or we should listen to the watchdogs who are saying that find all possible means to make things as rigid as possible to encourage saving? So that is a dilemma. Marketers tend to satisfy, marketing critics tend to easily forget that the 21st century customers have their own definition of rationality in the way how they make their purchase decisions. We can see this, this difference comes up in the way how personal and environmental factors interact, or how we interact with them from person to person. So the environment where you stay, where you grew up from, the schools you went to, the people you interact with will determine the type of issues that you consider to be rational. But critics want us to adopt a one-size-fits-all and say these are the ethical values. If you're to produce a product, it should meet A, B, C, D, and E, which might not be applicable in the modern day. So it is prudent to say that although companies adopt a fluid marketing mix strategy in terms of products, pricing, and distribution channels, among others, there will always be critics who will be saying that marketers are breeding unwanted industry competitiveness, that they are encouraging addiction, that marketing is instigating and inducing impulse purchases, that marketing is discouraging people from saving, that marketers are condoning consumer irrationality, that marketers are condoning consumer irrationality, overspending, and materialism. Ladies and gentlemen, as an issue of recommendation from this study, it is highly recommended that ethical policymakers should keep enacting guiding standards for service providers. But this should not be done in isolation. They should also go ahead to massively sensitize citizens towards long-term societal goals. Rather, the current provisions will only derive ethically responsible marketers out of business, since their intended clients will reject their product offerings. Assuming that I practice all the ethical standards called for by the different stakeholders, and my nearby competitor is not doing so, it means he will be offering products at a cheap. And that means that I will not be in position to retain my customers just because I'm producing an eco-friendly product, I'm selling goods to people who are above 18, maybe cigarettes, and I'm concentrating so much on not making customers addicted to a given product while the nearby competitor is not doing so. That way, I, the ethical marketer, in quotes, will be driven out of business. Ethical policymakers should desist from perceived double standards. For example, products that threaten human long-term existence yield the greatest tax contribution, which makes their sale really a necessary evil. Because it is the same governments that are legalizing the sale of cigarettes, alcohol, and guns on the market. However, when marketers offer such products to consumers, again, the critics and ethical scholars will say that marketers are really evil people, which I don't think is right. Marketers are tipped not to offer illegal products. Those that are already certified as illegal should not be offered to consumers because of their long-term detriment to society and to the organization's survival too. Thank you so much for watching me, for listening to me. I look forward towards sharing with you in the question and answer session. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Such a great sharing from our last presenter. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, may I thank you to all the presenters for the wonderful presentations. With that, this marks the end of the English paper session. Next, WCIT 2020 will be continued with the next parallel session, which is the presentations for the Malay papers. You may watch all the presentations by clicking the link provided in our Facebook page. On behalf of WCIT 2020 team, we are truly elated and privileged to have all of you today with us. With that, signing off from WCIT 2020, Nazira Mahmud for WCIT's FB Live. See you in the next conference.